I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. Last week, I mentioned that there was one remaining hurdle for the market, and that was the Israeli strike on Iran. That happened, and it turns out that it alleviated a lot of concerns regarding the strike leading to an escalation in the war in the Middle East. And so the market has run after this ambiguity, uncertainty has been removed from the macro environment. There are still a lot of unknowns out there. There's a lot of unknown unknowns, but it looks like the coast is clear right now for the market to start running. Now, we do get a lot of economic data later this week, and we have this week is the busiest earnings week of the quarter. So a lot of investor sentiment will be informed by the results of those earnings reports and what different companies guide for their earnings moving forward. So there's a lot that can change, but today things are doing very well. Dow Jones, Nasdaq, S&P, Russell, they're all in the green, with the Russell up 1.65%. Assalamu alaikum, Wilson. Nice to see you. And by the way, today is Monday, October 28th. Assalamu alaikum to all. Tesla has been able to preserve the gains that it experienced after its monster earnings report, close to 270 per share. Bitdeer and Iris Energy have had have had a monster day. So Bitdeer is up 11.5%. Iris Energy is up 16%. Oil is down 5.5%. There was a lot of anticipation for what was going to happen in the Middle East, and it turns out that it looks like, at least thus far, that things will not escalate. The flow of oil will not be interrupted. Bitcoin is at 68.7, still looking to get a 7 handle on the price of Bitcoin. Inshallah, we get that soon. And Doge is knocking on the door of 15 cents. And who knows, perhaps in this live it reaches 15 cents, but really bullish on Doge. And of course, if you're following the US elections, you know that if Trump is going to wins the election, there will be a new department, the Department of Government Efficiency, run by none other than Elon Musk. And the Department of Government Efficiency is basically, the acronym for it is Doge. So some free marketing there that is always useful when you're talking about a meme coin. If we look at the FinViz chart for movers today, looks like a sea of green. The bigger companies have had more modest returns, and so I think really now moving down the market cap, market cap order towards and looking focusing more on smaller cap companies and cryptocurrencies, by the way, may yield better returns in this in the immediate future. Now, we did see energy actually take it on the chin. As we mentioned, oil was down close to 5% today. And this reminded me of a tweet that I saw from none other than Andrew Tate, October 21st, mentioning that he bought $1 million worth of oil at 73.68 in case Israel strikes Iran. And that oil right now is at 67.7. So hopefully he got out before he realized that loss. And this is why I am very cautious not to swing trade. Recall always that the number one goal of investing is not to lose money. The number one goal of investing is capital preservation. Never lose sight of that goal. All right, moving on. Today is the best, historically, it's the best day of the year in terms of average return. So we have seasonality working in our favor, in addition to some positive macro developments. One question that many people may have on their minds is whether or not the market is overvalued. And I always like to look at this and see what the data is telling me. Now, if you look at the average PE ratio for the S&P 500, we are at elevated levels. So if you look at 1995, for example, the average was 16.4. Today, the average is 26.5. So a very big increase, more than 50% actually, in the average price to earnings ratio. And in case you're not familiar, the price to earnings ratio, the higher it is, the more expensive the asset that you're looking at is, all else being equal, that is. And so, this all else being equal is a very important detail because other attributes of companies have changed as well. For example, the net profit margin has changed for companies. So if you look at 1995, the net profit margin was 5.3%. Today it's 10.5%. So companies have become a lot more efficient. And when a company is more efficient, it's more profitable, you're willing to pay more for its earnings. That makes a lot of sense to me. And so this is something that I think people should take into account when they are looking at the PE ratio. Now, moreover, I think that the momentum that we're experiencing right now almost makes the PE ratio, at least as per the data and historical precedent, almost makes the PE ratio not really relevant, because if you look at the S&P 500 PE on months when the 12 months gain has exceeded 30%, like today, where if you look at the S&P 500 over the last 12 months, the return is actually greater than 40%. So there's strong momentum here. If you look at by September 30th, 2024, the S&P 500 PE was around 31. And if you look at all of the other months where you had periods where the 12-month gain, the previous 12-month gain exceeded 30%, and you look at the next 12 months, how the S&P performance was, the average for the above cases was around 14%. That is, the S&P returned an average of 14% over the next 12 months. So this is an argument in favor of momentum in the markets and what it means for expectations of returns, almost regardless of the PE at the time. Now, if you look at the correlation between the S&P 500 PE on a 5-year normalized EPS after 12 months gain of 30% and the performance 12 months after that, that correlation is basically 0.04, very close to zero. So, zero means the two are uncorrelated at all. And what it's telling us right now is that when you're looking at the return that you can expect from the market after a 12 months period of at least 30%, the PE ratio almost becomes irrelevant. There's almost no correlation between the level of PE and the returns you get in the next 12 months. And this is why I've been saying that that's not necessarily what we should be focused on. What we should be focused on is really the liquidity expectations in the market. They will set the tone for asset prices moving forward. And so currently in November, we're expecting almost a 98% chance, as close to certain as you're going to get in markets, for a 25 basis point cut. And then if you go out to December, there's close to a 70% chance that we get a 50 basis point cut by the end of the year. That's really what's going to determine liquidity levels and what's going to determine asset prices moving forward. That being said, I'm not oblivious to valuation. That's why we have our buy below, sell above prices for PIF members. We're still very cognizant of that. And in my email that goes out every Monday, telling members what I would invest in on that day, I am very cognizant of what assets are below our buy below prices. So this is definitely something that you must always keep in mind. But if we're talking generally here, and whether it's a good idea to be in the market or not, I think data suggests that it's still a good idea. And the other, and so long as the we have this additional tailwind with, I think, a Trump victory, then the argument becomes even stronger. And there doesn't seem to be any let up really in the margin for victory for Trump, or expected margin for victory, as per the betting odds at least. And that margin is, as you can see, expanding all the time. So this makes the markets, I think, even more attractive at this particular point in time. That being said, there are a lot of unknowns out there. So obviously, you should never invest money that you can't afford to lose. Be mindful of valuations so you're not burned. But generally speaking, if you're saying, "Hey, have we run up so much that you know there's no additional room for the markets to run," I think there is. There's a lot of liquidity on the sidelines. There's more liquidity on the way. There's a lot of positive developments that are happening. So I remain very bullish as of now, at least till the end of the year, and I will keep you updated. So if you're not subscribed, you haven't hit the notification bell yet, please be sure to do so. We'd love for you to become part of our community if you aren't already. So let's go to Rashad. Salam, Rakaan, and all. Thanks for the PIF meeting yesterday. Always great to hear. Well, thanks, Rashad, for coming. Always great to see you. Um, so we have a comment, brothers and sisters. I'm young. I don't know how to trade. Could you recommend me any guidance? Anything would help. Well, unless this is a some sort of ad and there's going to be comments, oh hey, look at this guy, this trader, he helped me out. Unless this is one of those, well, I would not really think about trading as something to get into. Rather, look at investing. Buy assets that are scarce, buy assets that are useful, and those will rise in price. But don't try to do what Andrew Tate tried to do, which is a swing trade where he, bought oil in anticipation, and now he's down and he wasn't in oil for the longer term. He doesn't have a thesis that supports holding it for the longer term, because that's basically how you lose money. Niall says, let's not forget to like the video. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'm really glad that you're enjoying these lives. Oh, thank you. Showa says, Dr. Showa says, I highly recommend Rakaan's course. I really appreciate that, Dr. Showa. Taskin says, Assalamu alaikum. I thought it was noteworthy to mention how effective boycotts have been. Interesting. So apparently McDonald's, Nike, Starbucks, RMCF are down. As it relates to boycotts, I think, what we should ask ourselves is, what is the end goal here? If, McDonald's, Nike, Starbucks, RMCF are down, that nothing was accomplished here in and of itself. So we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to, help the Palestinians in a material way? Not saying that, this type of pressure isn't necessarily useful, but I don't think these were necessarily the main culprits in the Palestinians' uh, plight. So I just want to make sure that we keep our eye on the prize, and the prize is helping our Palestinian brothers and sisters out. So it's not necessarily good or bad if a stock is up or down. What is good or bad is whether or not we're able to assist those who need assistance. and get assistance to them and take the pressure off of them. Now, if this leads to that, then great, I'm all for it. But let's not stop here and just pat ourselves on the back. The stock price is down, because that doesn't necessarily mean that any Palestinians have benefited from this. We have to take it till the end, which is to say, how are we going to help our Palestinian brothers and sisters in what they're experiencing? So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that. And Abdullah says, Salam alaikum wa alaikum salam. Do you think, and by the way, Taskin, I really appreciate your enthusiasm about this. And I don't want to, I don't want to make it seem like I'm speaking against any effort to help our Palestinian brothers and sisters, because I mean, the world has left them, and we must make sure that we don't leave them. Abdullah says, Sam Rakaan, do you think selling at a loss is ever a good idea? Yeah, of course. Selling at a loss is a good idea for many reasons. At the top of the list is if your thesis about a stock has changed, you no longer believe in it, or for example, you're uncomfortable with it, or you want to realize the loss because you get a tax advantage, or there is a better place to put the money than the stock that is at a loss. But I would say that one of the when you should not sell at a loss is simply because you have a loss. That's not a good reason. So you should check whether or not your conviction in the stock has changed just because the price has fallen. And if that's the case, then this is not a good reason to sell, because the markets in the short term do not necessarily reflect the truth. In the short term, the markets reflect sentiment. In the long term, the markets will reflect fundamentals. So just keep that in mind. I hope you found this live beneficial. I'd really appreciate if you did find it beneficial to leave a like, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live next. Become a PIF member if you aren't a PIF member yet. And until next time, take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum, and peace be upon you all.